Several more American states are set to lift COVID-19 restrictions this week against the advice of public health authorities. They warn the move could spark a new surge of infections just as safe distancing measures appear to be working. The number of COVID-19 cases in the country is nearing 1 million. 1,330 more people have died in the past 24 hours, taking the toll to nearly 55,000. Despite that, protests continue across the country demanding an end to the lockdowns. In San Diego, hundreds gathered along the streets, and most of them not wearing masks or practicing safe distancing. The director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security has tweeted that it's important for states to consider their testing, tracing, and quarantine capabilities. He urges the states to rapidly expand on those capabilities before reopening.
Now, for more on this, let's cross over to Simon Marks in Washington, D.C. Simon, much of the U.S. do not appear to have the testing, tracing, and quarantine capabilities required to safely loosen restrictions. Why are so many states insisting on doing so?
Well, I think simply, Steve, because they're coming under so much pressure now from their local residents who want these restrictions relaxed. And as a result of the mixed messages, frankly, that they've heard from the White House, the local governors and mayors, are having to accede to some of those wishes. There's an extraordinary photograph, I just put it out on my Twitter feed, of a beach in California, Huntington Beach, absolutely rammed with people. Over the weekend, Mayor Eric Garcetti of Los Angeles has now said that he's not going to allow one weekend of essentially stupidity by people going to those public beaches to undo weeks and weeks of very hard work. Here in Washington, D.C. this morning, we are witnessing certainly the busiest rush hour that we've witnessed for the last 6 or 7 weeks. Not clear to me where all these people are going, but the roads here are much more filled with cars than they would normally be. President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence have said to the American people that they believe the worst of the coronavirus pandemic will be behind the United States by the time we get to the end of next month. But the president's own top public health advisor, Dr. Deborah Birx, took to television over the weekend to say that safe distancing guidelines, testing, the need for careful calibration of a reopening is going to last for many, many months here. So there is no single clear message coming from the White House, and thus you see this extraordinary patchwork of decisions to reopen and public pressure for a reopening growing all over the country.
All right, Simon, speaking of the White House, Mr. Trump, the president, now he skipped his daily COVID-19 news conference over the weekend following what we know as the backlash over his toxic medical suggestions. Do we expect him to return to the podium today?
Well, there is a coronavirus press briefing on his schedule for tonight, Glenda, 5 o'clock in the evening here, 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, of course, Singapore time, which is curious because President Trump over the weekend said that these briefings he had concluded were a waste of time and effort. He gets peppered, he said, with hostile questions from reporters who are not interested in reporting the truth. And so the White House briefing room was bereft of briefings over the weekend. It looked very much as though the Trump show had come to an end after more than 45 episodes over the last 6 or 7 weeks. But now perhaps we are on the brink of either one last gasp by President Trump or maybe the beginning of season 2. Certainly the president's public health officials are distressed that the White House message isn't going to get out if there isn't some kind of communications channel for it to be disseminated. And let's see what happens in a few hours' time at the White House. Let's see what President Trump has to say and whether he does most of the talking or whether he leaves it to the Vice President and his public health officials to deliver the message.
Yeah, thanks for that update and keeping an eye on it for us. Simon Marks speaking to us there from Washington, D.C.